next study is about the impact of cultural mixing in creating positive intergroup relations. And the question of the study was, what influence does cultural mixing have on intergroup relations? Cultural mixing here in relation, because when I read this, I thought of intergroup contact, and cultural mixing, it seemed that they were defining cultural mixing as a more indirect form of intergroup contact. So not something that's kind of forced, that you show up at a camp or something and you're naturally just in an area that's mixed with a bunch of different cultures and people of different cultures. And so the methods of the study were evaluating the effects of cultural mixing on intergroup relations and intergroup psychological compatibility. And so there are these 4 different studies that they used to study this. And the first study utilized a Gutmann scale that asked cultural mixing and psychological compatibility questions regarding Tibetan culture. The second study, these participants participated in a cultural mixing manipulation, then completed a picture learning task and a cultural mixing manipulation test, and a feeling thermometer scale and Likert type group impression scale related to psychological compatibility. The third study, again, participated in a picture learning task, cultural mixing manipulation, and then they answered questions on perceived connection, psychological compatibility, and alternative variables. And then finally, the last study kind of summed up a lot of the previous studies, adding on an additional element where they had the picture learning task and cultural mixing manipulation again, but they had questions related to their emotions as well as the task difficulty, and then they rated their perceived connection. And what they found here was that cultural mixing does have an impact on psychological compatibility. It showed that the main improvements in higher intergroup psychological compatibility starts with cultural mixing. That includes an in-group and out-group. So it's a little more powerful, more effective when the out-group and in-group are included. And then this exposure to cultural mixing increases one's perceived connection, which is the mediator in this relationship, to the out-group, leading to a feeling, you feel more socially close to the out-group, which then it leads to improved psychological compatibility. So a big takeaway is, perceived connection is the mediator between cultural mixing and psychological compatibility. And the key takeaway that Natalie came up with here is that cultural mixing can be a great tool to improve intergroup relations and potentially reduce prejudice and discrimination between groups. And then sharing your own cultures with others can contribute to make in the wider scale of things, to creating a more peaceful world. So not only seeing other perspectives, but connecting with them can make a big difference. And that's the general takeaway from this study. Thoughts?
How do they measure cultural? How do they do they prime cultural mixing with it's like a learning?
They did mention that they I believe, let me see. They talked about, they used the term cultural mixing in the study, which may have acted as an encouragement for psychological compatibility. So that's my guess, is they,
There was some treatment, there was some manipulation, and was it like a vignette?
It was a, let's see, I have the methods here. Cultural mixing. So they were exposed to cultural mixing manipulation under one of 5 conditions, and there were yi dai cultural mixing, yi shui, I'm butchering this, cultural mixing, yi culture, dai culture, or a control group unrelated to culture. So it looks like it's facial learning task. Yeah, so the cultural mixing manipulation happened under these 2 or 3 these 3 cultures, I'm assuming.
Yeah, so I'm just wondering if I'm just curious as to how they manipulated it.
Oh yeah.
What was what was the manipulation? Was it vignette? Was it just like a vignette or something?
Right.
So there's a learning task, but yeah, I'm just curious. I mean, but but it's definitely it's very much like a psychological study, almost of intergroup contact. And how
right.
Yeah. have to look into it a little bit to see. Just curious.
Yeah.
Can you go back to the last slide? No?
Yeah.
So the greatest effect was when the manipulation occurred, and the manipulation included both the in-group and the out-group. Like, so it was made salient, the in-group was made salient, and the out-group, so it was like, it was a more clear difference.
That's what I took away from this.
Yeah.
Is yeah, it seemed that they did make it salient.
Yeah. I wonder why that would be. If you're kind of thinking of your own group and you're thinking of the out group, it's a more powerful effect than if you're just thinking of the out group. I'm assuming that's what it means, but
Yeah.
let's see. Find these studies or something, but something. Okay.
Yeah, it said that cultural mixing can increase intergroup psychological compatibility and has the greatest impact when the cultural mix includes both one's in-group and out-group, and that the negative feelings did not vary greatly between the 5 conditions that they had in the manipulation, showing that it didn't play a strong role in understanding intergroup relations.
Yeah, so when you mix with other cultures and you can perceive a deeper connection, you start to feel closer to them, and that kind of improves the sense of being compatible with them. It's kind of similar to the study that you're working on. We could probably use some of this.
Yeah, I thought about that too.